If you love classic cars, then Donald loves you.
What do you think? First initial impressions, Donald?
I'm very, very, very confused. I hear a sports car. I feel a big GT. And I see a truck.
Well, that's true, yeah.
There's a lot going on here. Certainly the experience of driving this TRX is extremely different from that Hummer. The Hummer EV feels so incredibly modern, capable, almost easy in its performance.
Right.
This, this vehicle's working. This truck is working.
It's old school.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting when you're dealing with truck buyers, because I was talking with Jim Farley from Ford. You had the new F-150.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, I like the door handles. I pull the latch and it opens. He goes, that's right. Truck owners don't want an electric button like you have on, you know, there are other things they don't want. There are certain tactical feeling things that, you know, you lock it, you press it, you know, all that type of thing. And it just struck me as funny. They know their market, you know.
And that's one of the questions I guess I have for this. Who do you think the market is for this car? And what do they want to do with it?
Well,
it's apparently a very capable off-roader. I mean, It's got a Baja mode, for Christ's sake. You know, you can climb rocks and things with this.
Right.
And driving a big truck with this much power and an Alcantara steering wheel.
Right.
You know, it's sending a lot of messages to my brain.
Well, you know, I don't know, when we were kids and soldiers got home from Vietnam, they bought a Roadrunner or a GTX or a Mach 1 Mustang. And I think these days it would probably be something like this, you know? You're an Oklahoma kid, you did your 2 years in Iraq, you want to come back, you're used to driving in sand and dirt, and this is what you want, the ultimate off-road sort of hot rod.
And it makes sense too if your first vehicle was, you know, a Dodge Ram pickup or an F-150 or a Silverado, then yeah, absolutely, it's what you used to.
Yeah.
I think we had a bit of this conversation. I was talking to a young fellow not long ago about American car manufacturers abandoning cars.
Right.
And he said, oh yeah, that's a really bad thing, and started mentioning all the experience he had with cars, and every vehicle he named was actually a truck or an SUV.
Right.
He'd never driven a car.
If you bought yourself a second-hand Ram or any capable truck and wanted to build it into the specifications, it would probably cost you more money than what it costs just to buy this outright. You know, I mean, here you get the full package. These are what, about $80,000, something like that?
Yeah, something like that. I think for the base price.
And that's with the options, I think.
Yeah.
You know, base price a little bit less, but the out-the-door price with taxes and all that kind of thing. So I think you're getting a bit of a bargain, but it is, I think it is what that young GI would buy these days as opposed to the Corvette, you know?
And it's also interesting that, you know, a big truck is very different than, the big truck of today is a very different animal from the big truck of yesterday. You know, so many of the trucks have become the family car, replacing that big sedan, big four-door, what we used to call crew cab pickups, are family cars for a lot of people.
Right.
And so to that point, just like the wonderful 7-liter Galaxy that you tricked your father into buying, you know, this is sort of that equivalent. You know, the 13-year-old Jay Leno of today goes to the dealership with his parents and says, you know, we need a 4-door pickup truck. Why don't we try this one?
Yeah, well, you know, but it's, you say that because if you wanted 702 horsepower in a car, you'd pay a lot more than you would for this truck. And I think you get more metal for your truck, you know, for your dollar, you know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense?
No, it does.
I mean, trucks are great bargains compared to performance cars, you know, because they're big, you can do everything with it. You can use this for every possible. And also, if you're a plumber, or you have a transmission business, or if you're a blue-collar guy who's very successful, this is really an attainable vehicle.
Yeah,
you know?
but I'm not carrying any soiled pipes in the back of this TRX. That's for sure. I'll visit the job site.
You'll be surprised. Some people
I'll visit the
might.
job site and have somebody else put it in their truck. But this truck just makes me laugh though, Jay, because you accelerate and you hear that high whine.
Right.
I mean, this is a
well, it's supercharged.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. I love supercharged engines, and it's just sort of so strange. It's like the proverbial boxer in the tailored suit.
Well, the thing that hurts you is that 12 miles per gallon. I mean, that's what it says in the ad, MPG.
Real life 9. Yeah,
and I'm one of those people. If I see just a few cents difference per gallon, I'll go all the way over to that. There's something psychological.
Now, will you get the car washed at the gas station to save 10 cents a gallon on the
well, yeah, but it's true. But it's true. When I drive an electric vehicle like my Tesla Plaid, I don't feel like I'm paying for fuel at all, even though it's integrated in my electric bill at home. I just feel like it's free. And the idea of every time I drive down the street and I see, especially in California, $6.88, $6.79, I go, really? I mean, I just went from here to there. I just spent $6 doing that. It psychologically, it's so horrible.
It's tough, but coming back to the driving experience. Okay, forget for the moment that this is very much like that 1960s muscle car that the vet came back to home to buy because you hit the accelerator and you watch the gas gauge do this.
Right.
This is also very strange. I had the same sensation driving the Demon. It's so quiet in here.
Yeah.
You don't think a truck is something that sort of makes lots of noise and rattles and shakes. The build of this is amazing.
Yeah. It's, in the urban environment we live in with bad roads and all the things, this is almost what you need to be bulletproof going down the highway,
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a 1956 Packard or something,
when I drive a modern car like a Tesla or like any of these luxury cars that have 21 and 22-inch wheels, I hit a pothole, bang, and that sidewall, I'm dead.
Yeah.
I got no spare. I got to wait an hour and a half, 2 hours for a flatbed. You can't tow it. You got a flatbed.
Right.
Not everybody has a flatbed, or there are no tires in stock. There's just, these probably can run flat, these things, the tires on this now.
All 4 tires may be flat as far as we know right now.
I know.
And we wouldn't know.
Exactly.
This is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, I have it in manual mode, so I'm shifting with the paddles.
Right.
Which is also, again, slightly strange.
And this has, I believe, an 8-speed transmission?
An 8-speed transmission.
Yeah.
Right now, cruising along here at 40 miles per hour in 7th gear. The engine's barely turning 1,000 RPM. It actually won't allow me to shift up into 8 because I'm going too slowly.
But the best you're going to do is 12.
Well, I've got half a tank of gas, and it says that my range is 79 miles, so it's about 160 miles to a tank.
Right.
And this is at fairly low speed.
And a tank is what, $90? How much is that?
I'd easily be at $90, $95 here in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
I filled up my my Alfa Romeo the other day, and it was $80. So it was something. But again, coming back to the duality, we often talk about track and street cars, and we know that a lot of cars. I keep saying. Do you have the same problem?
Say vehicles.
vehicles. I just can't bring myself to say truck because it doesn't feel like a truck.
I know, yeah. I guess that's good.
Yeah, maybe I'm becoming that young man I spoke to.
But trucks haven't felt like trucks for a long time.
That's very true. Very, very, very true. Now, the idea of having a vehicle with this kind of performance available, when you don't feel frustrated, as you do in a lot of sports cars, if you can't use all the performance,
Right.
because it is so smooth and so quiet.
Right.
Although it does sort of want to, it wants to go. There's no doubt about that. It's not really, really happy here, but it's not unhappy either. So in comparing this experience with probably the ultimate iteration of the internal combustion engine in 2022 with the electric Hummer, the driving experiences are very different, but equally satisfying, don't you think? Well, you don't know about the driving experience of this yet, but...
Yes, I think that's fair to say. You know, having grown up in an era of 32-cent gasoline, it's such a psychological thing every time I pull into a pump and go, really? 90? I'm just driving around. It's $90 just to drive around. I mean, it just seems crazy to me. Doesn't it to you? Does it seem in the same way that, you know, the price for used cars is just nuts compared to what we used to pay when I was a kid. I know it's funny. You just get older and that's what happens. You start thinking like an old guy.
Well, you also, you have to reset your concept and context. I was having a conversation the other day about the incredibly diverse and compelling offerings of cars in the $50,000 range and the $300,000 range.
Right.
And not that long ago, how would you have a discussion of cars in the $300,000 range?
Right.
There might have been a car that cost $150,000.
Well, I remember watching a 60 Minutes when I was, I think it was 1987 or 88. And they were doing a segment on Lamborghini on the Countach. And Morley Safer went to Italy. And he said, now, if this sounds like an ad for Lamborghini, not really. Because they are sold out and each car cost $100,000. $100,000 for the most outrageous car in your life, which seemed like back just in '87 seemed unbelievably crazy to spend that much for a car. But I guess that's where we are now. But
yeah, and you spend $20,000, $30,000 on an average used car. So when you think about what you can get in terms of performance, equipment, in a car today, $50,000, it's the equivalent of that $100,000 car from the 1980s.
But the interesting part is a vehicle like this, if you chose to, could last you pretty much the rest of your life. It's pretty bulletproof. The idea, people still get it in their head that it's 60,000 miles, a car is worn out, and a dealer won't give you anything for it. We talked about this the other day. You can buy Corvettes with 100,000 miles on them for $8,000 to $10,000 and drive them another 100,000 and they're fine, as long as it hasn't been beat up, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But modern vehicles like this is one tough truck. People talk about they don't build them like they used to. Good.
They build them better.
Yeah, much better. I mean, oil changes are what, 10,000 miles on this thing, something like that?
I think it's even further.
Yeah, even more so. I mean, I don't like to go much further than that. It just seems kind of foolhardy to me. But exactly. So
now the trick is with what you said. If the vehicle hasn't been beaten up, and with a vehicle like this TRX, I think that we'll see, as we've seen so often in other high performance vehicles, there'll be two classes of these: those which were really driven hard, taken off-road, used in Baja conditions,
Right.
and those cars which have 0 mileage.
Yeah, most people flirt with the power of this car. They
Right.
don't go all the way, just like you do in real life.
Yep.
You flirt with the cashier at the mini mart. You know, you don't go all the way because it's not going to happen. And that's why a vehicle like this could last you 15, 20 years. In fact, the average vehicle has gone from 3 years to something like 8 years now. People keep a car a long time, you know, so that's the one advantage of something like this. It will last you a long time.
One of the things I also love, again, all modern high-performance cars, and even some non-high-performance cars, have an amazing array of dashboard displays. And this one has one of my favorite dashboard displays because it shows the amount of torque you're using,
Right.
and the power that you're using as well. So at 40 miles per hour, in 5th gear, on the accelerator, I'm using 60 horsepower
Right, okay.
of a 700 horsepower car.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Exactly.
So it's an interesting thing. I think that displays like this, they have that horsepower gauge in the Bugatti Veyron. And I think that they're useful and very annoying at the same time because it's reminding you of what you're not using.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really need to know my differential temperature, you know. I'm not sure what, you know.
Well, if you're about to cross the desert and you just want to make sure that you can make it over those
Right.
next 6 dunes without getting to a service area on the Paris-Dakar rally, then I guess, you know, it's sort of important information to have.
But this is very comfortable. It's very automobile-like.
Yes.
The only thing that might betray it are the tires, which are chunky and make noise. But
Yeah.
other than that, quite smooth.
Yeah, I think that everything we're feeling now, and this is a fairly smooth road for Rhode Island, is mostly the tires.
Yeah. The thing that kills you is the gas mileage.
Well, with this nice conservative driving, we're up to 86 miles in range, so we're getting there. It's not a bad thing. I'm eager to get your impressions behind the wheel.
Yeah, let's try it and see. You know, my initial impression in this, it makes me laugh.
Uh-huh.
When I hear the engine start, I feel like Bill Hickman. You know who Bill Hickman is?
No.
All right. Bill Hickman is the guy with the glasses in Bullet who drove the Dodge Charger.
Yes.
Now, he never said a word, but the audio on that film is so great. Some of the camera work is kind of silly because you see the same cars all the time.
Right.
But you hear you hear the V8 in that Dodge, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and Hickman looks around. And it always reminds me, he was just, and then he looks in the rearview mirror and realizes McQueen's behind him. Just, you know, they say the human face has something like 7,500 expressions.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize he has a worried look, but he doesn't look worried, but there's something, you know. And so when I got behind this and I heard that engine, you know, and then as you pull away, you just sort of turn the wheel and you look in your mirrors and you see who's around you. And that's what's kind of fun about driving this. You feel like, you know. And this is so much faster than the Dodge Charger was.
Exactly.
In Bullet. I mean, you know.
And controllable.
Yeah, and controllable too, yeah. I mean, you do feel like you're in they always say the last days of old technology are better than the first days of new technology.
Sure.
And this is the last days of old technology. And it's great. It's 702 horsepower. It's smooth. It's fast.
Supercharged, I love.
Its downfall is the dinosaur juice. It just eats too much of it, you know? And that's sort of the killer. But it just feels like, you know, this is the last days of the old century, from the beginning of the car and what engines can do and how much power they can make. I mean, this is 702 horsepower with 650 foot-pounds of torque. That's incredible.
It is. And you think about the practical applications of that. You know, I've always been Mr. Torque and not Mr. Horsepower.
Right.
And to get the right combination of them in a usable way, you know, this obviously is a truck that can tow.
Right.
It can go off-road. It can climb rocks. and sort of be fun, a slight hooligan on the road. So
Right. Well, they always used to say, horsepower sells cars, torque wins races.
Yeah.
And that's, here you have both. I mean, the idea of 702 horsepower
in a truck.
in anything, really. It wasn't that long ago when, I always tell the story about, I was on the fence about getting a Dodge Viper, and the salesman said, "You'll never see 400 horsepower in a car again because of
This is your last chance."
Well, impending, smog emission. I thought, well,
Right.
you're probably right, And now that's the entry level in a sports car.
It is absolutely, and again, you said sports car, 700 horsepower. Maybe somebody got out of a dragster.
Right.
That's what that was.
Yeah, exactly.
It is absolutely astonishing again, and you're surrounded by double stitched leather and Alcantara and all this that you'd only find in a super luxury car. Think about this: when they were building Chrysler Imperials in the 1970s and 1960s, could you imagine a Dodge truck that would have an interior like an Imperial?
That being said, I wonder if you can get a stripper TRX.
TRX? I don't know.
The idea
That'd be
was
interesting to see.
just with nothing you don't really need on it,
Well, sort of the 911R version of the TRX.
Yeah, I mean, this is very nice to drive. I think you would just find the gas mileage crushing. I mean, that's, if you don't care about that, that's okay.
Well, you drive very quickly between gas stations.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's, but, thinking about usability and technology, and having driven the Hummer EV, I think it's really interesting to see that I think both those vehicles do what they do quite well in a totally different way, and with great personality. And to me, it's all about having personality and choices.
Right.
I wouldn't want every vehicle on the road to be the Hummer EV. I wouldn't want every vehicle on the road to be this TRX.
Right.
I'd like to get into a nice two-seater light sports car and feel the road and feel what's happening, be in control, even if I'm not going to have 700 horsepower. They're great and capable cars with 400 and 500 horsepower and great torque that can give you a great grin on your face.
I know, and then you buy a Miata with 125 horsepower.
And grin even wider.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, yes,
this truck has surprised me. It really has.
Yeah, it handles very nicely, and you're never gonna if you're pushing something like this to limits on the public road, you're gonna be in jail very soon.
Exactly.
Please stop it.
Yeah. We're in a different world, Jay. A different world.